In this video, we're going to cover topics of communicating and social skills as a shy introvert. I myself, I'd be considered an introvert. I'd be considered someone that is reserved, doesn't like to talk much, shy, whatever you want to call it, the whole 9 yards. I've heard it all on the spectrum. A person, just a quiet guy. I've got it all my whole life. Still happening to this day. But when I was younger, when I was at the time period 14, 15 years old in high school, when I was coming into my own, that's when I had a lot of questions. That's when the personality and the traits really started to bleed out where everybody would be able to see, and things would be incredibly apparent when it came to the spotlight being put on me, or if I'm put in certain situations, it showed, and it showed big time. So when I was that age, I used to utilize the best I could YouTube back at that time, which was not too long ago because I am not that old, I don't think. Hope not. But I used to look at videos, and I kept coming across these videos of people. First of all, there wasn't that many videos of ways to be better at talking, or ways to break out of your shell, or to none of that. You know, back then, I don't even think the extrovert introvert test was even a thing back then. I realized it, and I took that test like a few years back, so it's still relatively new to this day. So basically, back then, when I was in need at the height of me trying to figure out why the heck I'm the way I am, and especially in how I interact with people socially, there really wasn't anything that could really help me, in my opinion. If I were to find any sort of video, and there's only a couple, 2 to 3, it was always from these people that were like scientists, or their professors in their profession of communication or sociology, and these people were explaining and covering a topic that they themselves didn't have to worry about, or it didn't affect them. In other words, they were not introverts, they weren't shy people, but they were talking about ways to help people that have it, which to me has some legitimacy. It's not like it's total BS, but in my opinion, I wanted someone to help me with whatever I went through, because they went through it themselves, and they understand the hardships and the actual life experiences that come with it, because it affects them too, similar to me. I believe we're able to learn better that way, and there's a little bit more of a level of trust when it's someone that's been through the same situations you have. I think that's just natural human instinct. So I went ahead and I put together a few tips. I put 3 main ways, in my opinion, and in how I improve my communication and social skills as a shy introvert. And like I said, I'm still going through it today, getting better. My goal is to get better. Everyone's goals is different. Maybe people are comfortable with the way they are. That's fine. But here's a big reason why I'm making this video. In this country, and again, I don't know if you're in Bangladesh, I don't know if you're in Korea or Swaziland or Ukraine. There's every country and every territory and region in the world has their different customs and different culture and the way they are. I'm speaking for the American culture because I live here in the United States. From what I've learned and from what I've been, this is what works. This is what's needed. This is required, in my opinion. Like I said, this is my opinion. You need to be able to talk. You need to be able to conversate, and to be able to hold conversations in all sorts of levels with all sorts of different people of all demographics and all social status. That's just the way it is in this country. If you don't have that prerequisite, I'm not saying you won't get far in life, but you're going to be limited to what you're able to do as a functioning civilian in this society. Purely my opinion, but that's what I've been seeing so far, is that you cannot just be sitting in the corner of the class, quiet, doing your own thing like you did in high school and get away with it and get good grades. You're going to have to go to meetings. You're going to have to present things. You're going to have to, maybe whatever the job or whatever instance you're in, it doesn't really matter, because when you're an adult and you're a working individual and you have an occupation, most times than not, 95% of the jobs, unless you are a truck driver or you work in the oil rigs, I don't know, if you're a job that has a lot of autonomy, this doesn't really apply to it. But most of the jobs out here, you have to be able to conversate with people that are different than you. They have different political views than you do. They have different levels of trust. They have different life experiences. You have to, and it seems like a lot, right? I'm not trying to overwhelm. I'm not trying to really throw a whole bunch of things at you guys. I'm just really trying to get you to understand how important communication is, because myself growing up, I didn't realize how important communication was. I thought I can just get away with just not saying nothing my whole life, and that's not true. I encourage it, if you want to be a successful person and you want to go through some things in life, it's a great thing to be able to speak and to be able to communicate and get your message across. And how can humans can only do so much with interaction and body language to get the point across without saying words coming out of their mouth. So it is a pretty important topic to be able to communicate verbally, right? So I have a few tips, right, on how to get better at it, how to improve on it, right? First tip, find a job or hobby or activity in which you have to speak to people majority of the time. Okay, so if you're at a job where you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with patients, you're dealing with any sort of customer, and you have to constantly convey whatever, you're in sales, you have to explain something, you have to make sure that you're speaking to these people all the time. And it doesn't, in better instances, it's better if you speak to random strangers, because everyone's different, everyone receives information different. You're gonna have to change the way, not the way you speak, but you're gonna have to change the demeanor sometimes. You're gonna have to change the tone, the word choice you use based off who you're speaking to, in my opinion, so the message gets conveyed the best. Yes, I understand if you're an individual that stays true to yourself, you're gonna act the same way. I get that. But in most cases, when you're in a professional environment, you're not gonna be speaking the same way you'd be speaking with your friends when it comes to like your core beliefs in religion or politics. It just doesn't happen unless you're just a straight gangster. But in most cases, it doesn't work like that. So having a job or being in an occupation or having a hobby or activity where you're constantly engaging in conversation, and it doesn't have to always be about explaining or teaching someone doing something. Like if you're in sales or if you're trying to teach someone in a class as a teacher, it could just be small talk. It could just be any sort of situation, anything, talking about the weather, talking about recent news, you're talking about anything that's going on with their personal lives. That's a huge skill that'll really help you really quick. I put that number one because that's what helped me out the best. But I think that's the quickest way it's going to happen, because it's an everyday thing and it's the most natural, because it's part of your occupation. When you're in a setting where you're not at home, right? Like you're not around your friends, you're in a neutral setting, your mind's gonna kind of shift gears to how everything else is going to be in the environment, and the energy will kind of, be contagious, and everyone's going to be kind of on the same boat, and it's going to force you to be able to make conversations with people, because you're really not going to be the only one sitting there in the corner. It just won't fly that way. It will, but if it's an ongoing problem, you're probably going to get replaced. And that's why I said it's a pretty strong requirement when it comes to working in the work industry in this country. You have to be able to speak to people. That number one, I believe that's the most natural way to do it. That's the most easiest way, because you can talk about the people's kids, you can talk about schools, you can talk about your own experiences, you can talk about their experiences. I think talking about personal experiences is the easiest when it comes to conversating, because that's what you know the most. You don't have to think about it. It's just natural, because that's what you're living through. And once you guys find common ground, like, oh, I used to play basketball. Oh, my son plays basketball. You hit it off there, and there you go. You're having a full-blown conversation, and you're a person that's considered quiet. You won't be so quiet when you're talking about something that you have common ground with another person with. That's how it goes. Number 2, put yourself or seek situations in which you need to bring and present a sort of etiquette or style of conversation as much as you can, whether it's formal, informal, business, friends, family, friend gathering, party, club, different demographics. Going to as many events as possible, going to a friend's house and meeting their family for dinner, going to a club with your friends and being able to thrive in that environment, being in a formal environment where you're going to a meeting or a luncheon with some coworkers. All these different types of situations, scenarios are great to be able to get you to be used to being in these situations. It's practice. All of this is practice, and all this is repetition to get you to be more comfortable to be in these situations in the future, so you don't have to think as much. You don't have to be as uncomfortable, because when you keep doing something over and over again, you're going to get comfortable at it. It's going to be a lot more natural being a person that's quiet. So putting yourself in these situations, again, like anything else in life, when you start something, it's going to be tough. It's going to be weird at first, but if you keep doing it, you're going to get better at it, and it's just going to be like breathing. Putting yourself in all these different situations is low-key going to suck at first, but like I said, the more you keep doing it, the more easier it's going to get, and you just got to trust me. This is coming from I am on another level when it comes to being an introvert. Really, really, like, painfully. Man, I used to leave class if I had to present. I'm out of here. I don't want to talk about all y'all. I don't want to present this PowerPoint. Man, I'm out of here. I used to dodge that, man. Obviously, I can't do that nowadays, but that's at the level I was. So, me speaking on it, I'm hoping I'm getting and conveying the message across to you guys that are really in a similar situation and can't find any other resources that'll help you. I'm hoping that this will be for you guys, because again, it's something that it's not terrible, because when you're at a point in a stage in your life where you're figuring this out about yourself, you're not in a situation where you always have to be out there and face it. But when you get older, man, you're gonna really feel the effects of it. You're gonna say, hey, there needs to be a change. So I'm hoping you guys will take some of these tips and it'll work out for you guys and it'll get better for you, because it's also something that a lot of people don't understand either, because they were just born a different way. So how are they supposed to be able to compute and process what's going on with you when it's something that they've never had to deal with? You know what I mean? It's straightforward. You can't blame them, but they don't know any better, because they're just wired different. So that's that. So number 2, putting yourself in all these situations, these different scenarios, being with your friends, being with coworkers, being with people you never knew or you don't know, whether it's some sort of conference or get together. All these will really help you in the long run, because you're going to be in situations at certain points of your life where you're going to be in different spots, talking to rich people, talking to people that are from economically challenged neighborhoods, anything that you're doing. It's just every sort of different variety will help you, and it'll just educate you and put things in perspective and make you a little bit more well-rounded as an individual, which is good. The last point that I'm gonna put out there: conquer and attack your weakest attribute the most. Make sure that it's being clawed at persistently. Once that blockage is clear, the confidence arrives and everything seems doable and possible. Whatever it is, whether it's going to a dinner with a date, or whether that's going to present a project to your class, whether that's just even hanging out with a bunch of different people. Like if you get invited to a social gathering from a mutual friend, and then you get to meet all their friends, that's another thing too. I mean, sometimes people find that the most challenging. Sometimes shy introvert people find that the most, when it comes to them not knowing a bunch of people. Even if it's in an informal kind of relaxed environment, sometimes they find that the most difficult to be able to integrate themselves in and have the most anxiety from it. Whatever the situation is, that has to be at the top of the list, and you have to continue to put yourself in the situation little by little. I'm not saying you have to dive in head first and make a fool out of yourself. You're not making a fool of yourself regardless, but you don't have to just go full-fledged and put yourself in that situation. Little by little, right opportunity, right opportunity, work yourself in, making sure that top priority is the one you're most scared of, the one you're most anxious of or timid, most uncomfortable. That has to be on top of the list on making sure you really try and get used to that the most, because once you knock the head off, once you get the top to be unclogged, everything else is going to flow from there. Everything else is going to be smoother flowing from there. You're going to get a lot more confident in everything else. You're going to be a lot more relaxed in everything else because you got the most difficult thing out of the way, so everything else seems so easy below it. So I highly encourage making sure that top obstacle, the biggest challenge for whatever you have that is keeping you from doing a lot when it comes to speaking or communicating, putting yourself in that situation and doing it. They call it conquering your fears. They say that is the most important and the most impactful. So those are the 3 tips. Those are the main things I believe that'll help a shy, quiet person to improve their communication skills. And again, it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that has to be worked on for a couple years. For me personally, it took me about a year of work where I was at a job and I was constantly speaking with people every day, and it worked really well for me. And the good part about that was that I was speaking with people and conversating with individuals whom I had a different background from, and they were older than me. They were more mature than me. So I really had to make sure I was having the right conversations with them, because, some part of the reason why we're quiet and introvert is because we're worried about what other people think. And once I was able to have these older adults have a good impression of who I was, then that gave me that reassured some positivity towards me and gave me some confidence that I was able to do it. And it really helped from there on, because in my experience, I think speaking to people younger or our age is a little bit more natural, because that's who we're around and that's who we're dealing with most of the time, and that's a lot easier when it comes to conversation. But meeting a random stranger who has a different background and is from a whole different life than you, and you have to be able to talk to them, is challenging. And once you're able to get the challenge to be completed, it's a good feeling when you're able to get it done, and then everything else is smooth sailing from there. So hope that helped. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Comment down below what you guys thought, what I could have added, and what some of your experiences were, and if you utilize some of these tips, and let me know what the result is. Even if it's negative, if someone punched you in the face, I'll take the fault for that. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Tune in for the next one. Peace.